Welcome. You are listening to Caregiving Secrets with Deborah Greenhut. If you are a family caregiver or expect to be one, and you want to maintain your well-being while caring, then you are in the right place. I am your host, Deborah Greenhut, speaker, author, and rational caregiver advocate. I'm a family caregiving veteran, bringing you survival secrets and experiences from experts who share the goal of doing less by managing more. We need to invent and reinvent family care, and together we're going to do it. My big idea is rational caregiving, and my motto is, let your brain lead your heart. Please share yours in the comments. Caregiving Secrets, because friends don't let friends be caregivers alone. Let's do this. My guest today is Roselyn O'Brien, principal consultant and founder of Achieving Results. Roz also authored a book, which is a valuable work on development for nonprofit organizations, with the familiar title, Achieving Results. I interviewed Roz in 2023 when she was actually functioning as a caregiver for her husband, Stan, while she unexpectedly needed a caregiver herself. Ever efficient, Roz had planned everything out carefully, and she and Stan were trying to do all the right things to protect their well-being, including seeing a wellness counselor. And they saw him together to discuss their challenges and learn strategies they might not have known otherwise. It doesn't get much more proactive than that, but as they say, life happens when you are making other plans. So here's an excerpt from our 2-hour conversation about those events, as Roz told me about what happened while Stan was recovering from a biopsy in the hospital.
So he ordered the bone marrow biopsy, and that actually was on June 6th. And this is where the caregiving and the simultaneous things take a turn. On June 6th, he was in the hospital, outpatient, for the biopsy and a couple of other tests. And Deborah, this is the exact way this happened. Everything was perking along, appointment after appointment. That day I was in the waiting room, and I was in a corner seat to prop my head against the wall to get some rest while he was in there. So he was in the surgery. Just before they came to get me, this unbelievable feeling of dread came over me. Like from top to bottom, it was like, I said to the wellness counselor, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And I had this, oh no, this isn't going to be good feeling, right? So they came to get me. I went to his room. I had been having some AFib issues back in March. So somehow something told me to pack the blood pressure and pulse reader in the little suitcase I had taken there, because I didn't know if he would have to stay overnight. So I took my pulse. It was 150. I kept taking it while he was out of recovery, but he wasn't fully with it. So after taking it about 3 times and it staying in between 150 and 160, I whispered to his nurse, I said, I'm having a problem. My pulse won't come down from 150 to 160. So she checked my readings on my meter and she said, I'm going to take you down to the emergency room, which she did. And I was hospitalized for 4 days, starting with that day that he had his biopsy with AFib. And they did an electrocardioversion to get my heart back in rhythm. Stan at this point has to drive himself home without permission from having his biopsy and other tests. So I was alone in the hospital for the most part until it was time to come home. And the electrocardioversion worked for a few days and I hadn't had a problem with the AFib since 2017, any significant problem. So we come home and we're waiting for biopsy results. So Stan goes out for errands on June 13th. Deb, I can't tell you how I knew this, but I knew that he would get the results when he was out doing the errands. And he did. So he called me and I said, no, we can't talk about this over the phone. You have to come home. And of course, it was very emotional for both of us. So he got his cancer diagnosis on June 13th. About 3 days later, I have another episode of the AFib, and I'm back in the hospital for another 4 days with another electrocardioversion that failed within 45 minutes. So the stress was unbelievable. He wasn't scheduled to, what we were told was basically very fast growing, aggressive, diffuse large B cell lymphoma, and a very large mass, which was about 8 inches in length and a couple inches in diameter in his groin, pressing on the femoral artery. Stan had no pre-existing conditions at all before this happened. I was the one with the long laundry list. So I was in the hospital. He was able to come a couple of times, not for either procedure in June. So when they discharged me because the electrocardioversion failed, they put me on this medicine called flecainide that was to prevent the AFib. Well, it did, but it reduced my heart function. But it was okay. It was keeping the AFib at bay. So then July 10th, he had a meeting with the oncologist. The 11th started his chemotherapy, and I've gone to all the stuff for every second of it. And she started a regime of 6 21-day cycles of what's called RCHOP. So we never saw her again until the 5th treatment. We saw assistants, we saw whatever, but after his first treatment, we had a call into her because the genetic reports were coming in, and I was doing a tremendous amount of research, in which I think a lot of caregivers have to, because if you aren't the health proxy, the advocate, the researcher, the patient can only handle so much. I'm keeping track of the meds, I'm researching the drugs, I'm keeping this notebook updated, the appointments, and trying to get resources for us to understand more what's going on. So the genetic report comes back, and from the research I did, I learned from the genetic report that he had 20% of his B cell lymphoma had other types of B cell lymphoma in it, which were not curable, but were manageable and treatable. So we didn't get a call from the oncologist about this. So we contacted her, and she got back to us on a Saturday. Stan had her on speakerphone, and I'm asking her questions. And she's saying, oh, I don't have the reports yet. We have to wait to see if there's double, triple hit. And I said, well, I'm looking at the report, and we need an explanation about what this 20% is. Well, she kind of blew us off, just like, well, it really didn't matter to her because she would start this RCHOP, regardless, and we'd had one treatment. So that evening, now during the toxic period, we can't even touch. He has to wear gloves. There's a lot of precautions. I'm sleeping upstairs. He's downstairs. I can't even do his laundry. He has to double wash everything. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. He can't be in the kitchen. We can't use the same bathroom. Caregivers that are under the same roof, I mean, there's a lot of precautions. So that after we had that phone call, that was on a Saturday, we got insufficient answers. We were both concerned and frustrated about that. So that night I go to sleep. It's mid-July, right? I go to sleep. kind of. And I wake up coughing in the night, and I'm coughing up blood clots. And so I go to the restroom and I'm not feeling well, and I'm kind of confused and stuff. And I say to myself, okay, well, maybe I just had like drainage in my throat. I'm thinking of all these weird things. So I start to go back to bed. And then I thought, wow, you better take your blood pressure and your pulse. Maybe something's wrong. So I take it, and my pressure is like 225 over 125 or something like that. I don't wake up staying yet, and I retake it. I'm downstairs by this time, and I felt like not with it really, but I take my pressure again. My pulse is like 150, 160 again, and I know it's something more than AFib. So I wake up Stan, and I said, I think that we've got a problem, and we better call the ambulance because maybe I'm having a pulmonary embolism. I told him about the coughing up and whatever. So we call the ambulance, and he follows now this is during his get strong for treatment number 2 period. So the ambulance comes, and they do the blood work on me and everything. And I'm having a cardiac event. My troponin level is in the 700s as opposed to under 12 or whatever. And I go on heparin and all that stuff. So they schedule me for a catheterization the following day. Stan's able to come for that. And thankfully, my normal cardiologist, my regular cardiologist, did that catheterization. And when I'm coming out of the anesthesia, he says, good news, you didn't have any blockages, and you didn't have a full-blown heart attack, but you had Takotsubo. I don't know what Takotsubo is. I had never heard of that. And he said, it's broken broken heart syndrome. You have a stress cardiomyopathy. Okay, so I'm half in anesthesia and I'm listening to this, and I'm hanging on to some words. No blockages. Okay, that's good. Pizza's not blocking my heart. That's good. And stress. And then the broken hearted syndrome, which immediately takes me to, oh my God, I've always figured that that's what my grandparents had because they passed away so close to each other. And I'm thinking, oh my God, oh geez, this isn't good. This isn't good. But fortunately, they revised my medicine, but my heart function went down to, rather than 60, 65%, it was 45%. So it caused a big change in heart function, but you can recover from it. Some people recover in a few weeks, some people recover in a few months. So I have a repeat echo coming up in December to see if that has been the case. And I think it has been, but it takes a while to gain your strength. So here I am in the hospital for a few days. I have the catheterization. And the very following week, Stan has treatment number 2. So I don't miss a beat. I get out of the hospital and I spend all day with him for his treatment. And then we are literally in the toxic period together, where we're taking turns doing food and drinks for the other. I'm told I can't do stairs for 3 months, but yet that's where I sleep. And so I do the stairs anyway. And so the caregiving was simultaneous for a while, but it gets better because through the hospitalization, I'd been complaining about weakness and fatigue for a really long time, like a couple years, and my blood work showed low iron, whatever. So the primary doctor sent me to a hematologist who in September ordered 2 blood infusions. So I had to go to the same cancer center Stan's going to for my infusions. And I wouldn't let him go with me because, frankly, the cancer center isn't the most uplifting place to go.
No, it's not. And
So I said to him, no, no, we spend enough time at the cancer center. I can go. I had my infusions. So the infusions, I think, and I was told by the hematologist I would feel better. Well, I didn't. I was, I came home from infusion number 1 and slept 17 and a half hours. I was out until just a few days before infusion 2. Then they tell me, well, you'll feel better in 2 to 4 weeks after infusion 2, which thankfully I have. So I'm dealing with the infusions, and we're going through Stan's treatment number 3 by this time, and 3 and 4. And he had a PET scan in the middle of this that showed that his mass was responding to the chemo treatment, but no one tells us how much. So here I am, and I have papers all out in front of me, all the measurements in centimeters and stuff. And I'm calculating the percentage of the progress of this and the new size of it. So I come away with, okay, it's 40% reduced. So the oncologist says to me when we see her for visit 5, well, how do you know that calculation? Where did you get that? I said, I did it myself from the reports. It was too, I mean, I was good at math in school, but come on. I mean, I'm not used to doing this right now. So anyway, long story made short, a lot of our things were simultaneous, and it seemed that I was just in time for his next treatment. I had my stuff, and I was able, we didn't miss a beat together through this. But the whole reason I'm telling this is I think a very big thing that doesn't maybe get enough attention for caregivers is monitoring for stress cardiomyopathy.
mhm.
Because when I was going through this, I thought, I've heard friends, and I worked for a lot of cancer organizations or with them as clients, and I heard a lot of people complain about the fatigue, the inability to sleep, irregular heartbeat, not eating well, not caring about eating, a lot of things, but it always gets pushed to the side. Like, yeah, caregivers need a break, but they also need monitoring from their doctor. I mean, does any of this resonate with experiences you've had?
Well, yes, and I've done an awful lot of research on what is happening to caregivers. Globally, 1/3 of caregivers will likely die before the people they care for because they're suffering from a stress-related illness such as heart disease, diabetes, or hypertension. So everything you're saying, and another third or so are also suffering from it, but maybe not dying before the person. So they don't do the research beyond that, but it's typically women. And since they know that women's heart attacks come on differently, I don't know why that isn't just an immediate thing that would be challenged.
Oh, honest, Deb,
Put those things together.
it's so important. I think a lot of it is people think that, oh, yes, of course you're tired, you're doing this, you're doing that. But this is the kind of fatigue I've said to my friends, this is the kind of fatigue that it's a wall that you come up against, and you can't climb up the wall. And typically I'm a high energy person.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I would have to put, I mean, 2, 3 things on my calendar, like, oh, Roz, just make this dinner. You'll have this dinner. Stan will have this dinner for the next 2 to 3 days. Laundry had to go on my list, because throwing in laundry and doing all your other, I mean, it's real.
I want to conclude today's episode by saying, please, please educate yourself to avoid becoming a statistic. We spoke about how families need to step up a bit more to help the family caregivers preserve their well-being. And it seems that this is an area that still needs a lot of work. Seems to me that families can do the best caregiving of everyone. Here's a takeaway tip. If you're a caregiver, make sure your doctor monitors your heart. It's challenging to take care of yourself, but it's worse if you become a patient needing a caregiver too while you're caregiving. Please don't become your own biggest obstacle. Until next time, please drop a comment about your own caregiving tip. Put it in the comments. Stay well. Thank you for joining me today on the Caregiving Secret, How to Survive Family Caregiving. I love sharing these insights and stories to empower you on your caregiving journey. If today's conversation resonated with you, consider diving deeper by picking up a copy of my pamphlet, Non-Negotiables for Caregivers. It's filled with great strategies to help you think through how to maintain your well-being while caregiving. Nobody wants to become Carezilla, right? Visit caregiving.net to get this resource that can help you navigate your caregiver path with grace and resilience. Let's continue to share our stories and support each other. Until next time, keep sharing, keep caring, and remember, you're not alone on this journey. Thank you.